I'm often telling the clients that we work with in our events or one-on-one, like if it takes you a lifetime to see this goal come to fruition, will it be worth it? Because if it's not, then we got to ask ourselves why we're even going after it, right? Like if we're not willing to put our whole heart and soul into it and stick with it, because hope is a long game. That's something I say in the book. Hope is a long game, and we've got to be committed to what we're hoping for and not just quit at the first sign of struggle.
Welcome to GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, aka the Going North Podcast. I'm your host, best-selling author, and certified self-leadership trainer with the John Maxwell team, Dom Brightman. And this is the podcast where authors from around the world help you realize that success is tangible. Now let's get on with the show. And today on the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, known as GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, the Going North Podcast, we got one heck of a super special, awesome guest today that could probably fit all of those G's because my goodness, this podcast is a magnet for super special, awesome humans. And today we got a walking freaking degree because today's guest is a keynote speaker, best-selling author, co-founder of her business with her partner in the wonderful business known as the Rayma Team LLC, and co-host of She Who Overcomes, trademark, podcast on Apple Podcasts and wherever podcasts are found. And she's also a TEDx speaker. So let's give it up for the true walking MBA, who's probably got more MBA experience than probably 50% of MBAs out in the world today. Let's give it up for Mandy B. Anderson. How you doing today, Mandy?
I am doing great. Thank you so much. I think that is probably the funnest introduction I've had for a while on a podcast.
That's good. We try to keep it fun on a bun. Whether it's a hamburger bun or a honey bun is up to the listener.
Yes, I should have worn my messy bun today. That would have been the way to go.
There you go. Messy bun always, the true MBA.
Yep. You know it. That's how you know you're getting work done, right? The messier the bun, the more in it you are. So
This is good. So hair buns and honey buns. All right.
yep.
Yeah. Well, as you know, with all introductions, they're not allowed to be 7 days long. So am I filling in any cavities I missed about you, Mandy?
No, I think you got the basics down. I think that's good. So
I got the basics indeed. All right, so succeeded in basic training. That's what I'm talking about right there. All right, cool. It's always good to succeed in basic training, you know. Some folks don't make it through basic training. So my goodness. So you're a prolific author and you have this wonderful book called Dangerous Hope. So my goodness, why is it dangerous hope? Because most folks think of hope, it's like, what makes it so dangerous? Is it like when you have no strategy? Like, what makes it dangerous?
You know, I before I answer that question, I kind of have to give you a backstory because people are always asking me, where did this come from? Like, how did you get the idea? And I'm going to be 100% real with you. I got the idea from the movie The Hunger Games, which is actually one of my favorite movies for many different reasons. But in the movie, the villain of the story, his name is President Snow. He has this quote where he says that hope is the only thing stronger than fear. A little hope is effective. A lot of hope is dangerous. And I just kind of started meditating on that and stewing on it. Like, what does that mean? Like, why is hope dangerous? And the context of the movie was that if you give these people who have been kind of kept in this captivity, they've been kept in this world of poverty and extreme control by the government, if you give them too much hope, they might realize that they are stronger and more plentiful in numbers than the government. And so they might rise up and take back what's been taken from them. And that's why hope is dangerous in the context of that movie. And I really started thinking, okay, but how is hope dangerous in our real life? Like, how does this play out? And I think For me, I was born with something called cystic fibrosis, which is a respiratory and digestive disease, and there's no cure for it. It's genetic, you're born for it or born with it, and you will never get rid of it. And so to have a hope of a cure is dangerous to the disease itself. To walk out different choices and hope for a miracle or supernatural healing and not do your medicine, that's dangerous to your life. So I think hope is dangerous because it really does have the ability to change something for good or for bad, depending on what you're hoping for and how it goes.
Freaking love it. Freaking love it indeed. Freaking love it indeed. And glad you're still a survivor from the fibrosis. My goodness. Because if I'm not mistaken, like with respiratory illness like that, it's kind of hard to do a lot of activity. But if I'm not mistaken, you're actually a runner now. And you love running, right?
I do. I do. I have ran a half marathon a couple of years ago. I think my sweet spot is running 5Ks and 10Ks, but I would kind of like to do another half, maybe next year or the year after. The thing is, it takes so much time training. So it's like you got to give and take. And I don't know that I want to commit my life to running long distances all the time, but just the fact that I can do it and I enjoy it is kind of a big deal, because growing up, even when my lung functions were higher than they are today, I didn't like doing any type of exercise or physical activity because it hurt, or I don't know, I just running found me within the last decade and I really enjoy it. So
That's good. That way you can extend your youth. That's right.
yep, exactly. With, making sure that you don't also hurt yourself and have injuries, because that's a real thing, muscular and all types of different things. So it's fun. It's a challenge. I find for me, running is where I get a lot of ideas for writing or content or speaking, even kind of working through like business things or coaching things for my clients. Running is where I get that inspiration and I can think more clearly.
That's what I'm talking about. Clear thinking indeed. And that keeping circling back to that wonderful title where you got it from the Hunger Games, it's like it just hit me like, wait a second, like imagine if a lot of people acquire dangerous hope in their own lives to realize that they are
Mhm.
more gifted and talented, that they actually let themselves on to be and tap into that side where they get to grow from it. And it sounds like you, and especially your buddy with your business on the Rayma team, help people to really tap in to that dangerous hope and really tap into their inner greatness that they already have.
We do. The tagline of the book is planting something meaningful in the soil of disappointment. And so there's a strong metaphor of planting throughout the book. And what are the characteristics that you need to plant so that you can handle what you're hoping for? And we work at Rama Team primarily with women. We do life and leadership coaching for women, but we also work with some men. We've done coaching for one-on-one coaching with men. We will go into companies and do leadership training for their entire staff, no matter what their gender is. And then we'll also do some specialized leadership training for women as well. But when it comes to hope, and dangerous hope, that really is something that affects everybody, no matter your background in life, no matter your gender. It's a human issue, right? Like as human beings, we hope for a lot of things. We hope for our businesses to succeed. We hope for our circumstances to change. We hope for equality and we hope for justice, and we hope that we can even cure disease. And so hope is this thing that we all have. And some people think that that dangerous hope is only from the background of faith, which I do bring my faith into it, but really it's how do you get back up again when what you hoped for didn't happen the way you hoped it would, or it's taking too long and now you're starting to lose hope because you feel like this is never going to happen. And so part of the idea of planting something meaningful in the soil of disappointment is giving people permission to lean into those hard emotions of when you're let down, when you're disappointed, because so many people look at that and they think, oh, I just need to hurry up and get over it. And I just need to focus on positivity, which is good. But there is such a thing as toxic positivity, where if you are only looking at the positive and negating the hard things, you're actually hurting yourself, and you're not going to be as strong of a leader, because you won't know how to help people through the hard things and give them permission to learn from them. And so that's really the basis of Dangerous Hope, is how do we go through the cycle of dangerous hope, which in the book I explain the cycle of dangerous hope is dangerous hope. You take action, and then you find yourself in false hope, where maybe you're thinking you don't have to work as hard, or you're thinking, oh, if I just think positively, it's going to happen. So you're kind of not paying attention to the setbacks. And then the setbacks happen, and you find yourself in hope deferred, where you're wondering what went wrong. You're wondering if it's meant to be, if it's going to work out. You're starting to lose hope. And hope deferred is where you have soil that is rich with wisdom, with the opportunity to dig deeper, to grow as a leader, to grow as a human being, and discover lessons and learn things that will help you spark dangerous hope again, so you can handle what you're hoping for.
Handle what you're hoping for. That's what I'm talking about, indeed.
Mhm.
Kind of reminded me of that old saying, be careful what you wish for because it might just come
Right?
true.
Yeah. And I think that's a thing, right? Like humans, especially in this day and age where we have, the world of social media, which is has positives and negatives to it, but it's an instant world, right? You get the instant likes, you get the instant comments, but that's not how life is. Like the best things in life take a long time to develop. And I look back at the goals that I had over a decade ago and what I've achieved since then. And some of the goals I wrote down, I don't care about anymore, and they didn't happen. But it was the journey of going after them that got me to who I am today, that opened the door to new opportunities and new connections, and even new letdowns that helped me level up as a human being and as a leader. And I think that's what's important, because I'm often telling the clients that we work with in our events or one-on-one, like, if it takes you a lifetime to see this goal come to fruition, will it be worth it? Because if it's not, then we got to ask ourselves why we're even going after it, right? Like if we're not willing to put our whole heart and soul into it and stick with it, because hope is a long game. That's something I say in the book. Hope is a long game, and we've got to be committed to what we're hoping for and not just quit at the first sign of struggle.
I'm not sure if this is a classic one-liner from you, but new letdowns to level you up. My goodness, that's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm,
That's what I'm talking about indeed. Because a lot of folks, like, heck, even before these past couple years, everybody has letdowns as part of life. But hey, using
mm-hmm,
those letdowns to level you up, like, dude, like that,
mm-hmm,
like a lot of folks just need to remember that part of the game. And you're so right. Hope is a long game, like a classic saying. That's now
mm-hmm.
classic. The marathon continues is the fact that, hey, it's going to be a long game. You still have to have some level of hope and also being willing to acknowledge when things aren't working, because you're probably one of the few that have really jumped on this podcast and really just blatantly said it's like, hey, there's some goals that I just didn't want to achieve anymore, because sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it's like we're in a different phase of life, and then as we grow and advance in life, it's like, well, that goal really didn't mean nothing to me
Mm-hmm.
now, because I feel like I'm doing better than what that goal may have gotten. It's like that promotion that somebody may have wanted at first, but they realize, oh crap, maybe I'm better in this way. So that's freaking fire.
Right. Well, and it's even that idea of sometimes we write down a goal, but we don't fully comprehend what sacrifices we're going to have to make to get there. And sometimes the sacrifices that are needed to get there aren't worth it. Like they might be worth it to somebody else, but as you start living your life with you and your family and the people that matter most in your life, you might find, you know what, if I have to give up this with my family to reach that, I might not want to. And we don't always know that when we write down a goal, right? And I think there's a difference between quitting because it's hard and you have a negative attitude about it versus quitting because you really thought through the choices and you realized, I don't want to do that. And I think that's where we need permission to admit the letdowns, admit how we have grown as human beings, and admit that we have different things we're hoping for. And sometimes they can't all coexist at the same time.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That's right. I need to give her the freaking Godfather preacher's role, baby, because she's preaching, baby. That's what I'm talking about. The marvelous Mandy on the mic, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Triple M swag this morning. Like, if y'all ain't following this chick on social media, you're doing something wrong because she is on fire. That's right, baby. That's what I'm talking about. So, since this is far from your first rodeo in the podcasting game, and you also host a podcast of your own, is there a question that you wish you be asked more often when you're on the guest side of the game?
Oh gosh, that's a good one. Oh, there really isn't, because I think each host brings their own flavor and has their own point of view. I've had people ask me questions like, what did you have to sacrifice to get to where you're at today? I've had people ask me about my experience in the work world. It's funny, we were talking before you were starting to record that MBA are my initials, but I'm actually a college dropout. And sometimes that's a huge insecurity for me. I've had to work really hard to grow my skill. I'm kind of a self-taught person, and not that I taught myself things, but I sought out the certifications, the mentors that I wanted to work with to learn these things. I don't know that anybody can really truly be self-taught, because I think we need other people to learn all those things. But when it comes to that idea of being self-taught, I decided I want to work, I want to be a coach. What certification am I going to need? Who are the people that I admire that I need to reach out to or learn from or work with? What certifications can I get? Like, those are the type of things that I have done to really build my skill. But really, when it comes down to it, I think the thing that matters most in all of that is, who are you as a person? What character building and personal growth are you willing to go through to handle whatever title or job or career that you want to do? Because just because you have the schooling and you have, the position, doesn't necessarily mean that you are the best person for the job if you're not willing to grow your character so you can lead well.
Oh, yeah, you can say that again. And congrats on being a college dropout, because, funny enough, in the middle of our presentation, I got to a certain piece in there, and then for some strange reason, out of my mouth, it came like, hey, folks maybe think it's like dropouts. Like, what? What are you talking about dropouts for? Folks may think they may be thinking about Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. It's like, hey, they
Mhm.
dropped out of college, but they didn't drop out of life. That's the thing. Like,
Yep. Hmm.
that's the thing. She dropped into life, became a self-taught entrepreneur, doing all the wonderful work. Indeed. So that's what I'm talking about. Indeed, college dropout swag. So don't worry about school all the time, you know. You're still
Right.
getting your education.
Exactly. And I think, when you go into the job market and you see these job ads where they're saying, must have 2 years of college, or you must have this degree or that degree, and it really isn't something where you need to have a specialized degree. First of all, I think if anybody's like, yeah, how do we get over that? Realize that sometimes that's a way of weeding people out who
Hmm.
don't have the passion to sell themselves, really. I have gotten jobs where they've asked for that, and I go in and I said, I am passionate about this. Like, I once upon a time was a wedding planner, and I worked as the event specialist and did all the weddings at a hotel that was one of the biggest hotels in our area at the time. And I went in, there were other people applying for the job that definitely had more experience and credentials than me. The difference is I was actually, I forgot about this, but I was a certified wedding planner early on, like 20 years ago. And because I had that certification and I thought I wanted to do that as an entrepreneur, which I don't anymore, never like didn't after about 2 years, but because I had that, it proved to my employer that, hey, she's passionate about weddings, which is like the majority of our events at this venue. Even though she didn't finish college, there's something there. Like, she has the drive to get the skills she needs and she wants so that she can do the best job. And I think that's something to remember, no matter what point of life you're in, how old you are. Nothing, like, if you don't have the college degree, but you've done things on your own to show that you have passion, or you're even willing to pay for your own training, that matters to somebody who is looking for somebody that is driven, who is looking for somebody that can show up and do the best and even elevate the whole organization because of their attitude.
That's right. Elevate the whole organization, indeed. That's what I'm talking about. Well, a quick new question you probably haven't even heard yet on this podcast tour is that if your particular book, Dangerous Hope, was a food item, what would it be and why?
Ooh, Dom, that is a great question. Okay. If Dangerous Hope was a food item, oh man, I want to say it would be filet mignon because it's delicious. There's a lot to chew on. Some of it is quite tender. There's definitely tender-hearted stories in it. But more than anything, I really feel my book has the ability to add more value to your worth as a human being, because what you're going to learn inside of it is how to get back up when you feel like quitting, how to become a person who can handle what you're hoping for. And I think whether it's a personal goal or a professional goal, there's a lot to chew on in my book.
Ah, pun intended. I got you.
Exactly.
Yes, indeed. Yes,
That
indeed.
is a
Filet
great
mignon.
question. Really great question.
Oh, well, thank you. Been torturing guests with it for the past few months worth of episodes. So, yeah, that's right.
Mhm. I
Funny
think,
enough.
oh, go ahead.
No, ladies first. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, one of the conversations I've been having lately with some one-on-one clients and even some of our corporate clients is, how do you build connection with a team when everybody is working remotely? And I think questions like that is one way to do it. Like whether it's about a book, or like if you're pitching something to your team for work, that question of if it was a food item, what would it be and why? Like those type of questions are great because they get people thinking, and it does build connection because now you learn how somebody sees themselves or their project, and even what some of their favorite foods are if you're paying attention.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And heck, books are food for the mind, too. So that's another
Exactly.
reason for the question. Indeed. That's right. Expand your mind, expand your
Mm-hmm.
thinking.
Yep.
That's right, indeed. So she's been killing it, y'all. She's been killing it. That's right, indeed. So what's next on the agenda for you? Because I know you have a wonderful, shiny journal that's going to be the first of a set of 5 for women
Mm-hmm.
leaders, especially. Is there anything else you got big planned? Because you also got a TEDx talk that's freaking amazing. You're actually one of the TED. Well, then again, I don't watch as many TED Talks as I probably should, but you're probably one of the few that actually starts off with a song, and you actually sung it
Mm-hmm.
well, too, which is freaking great. So, what's
Thank
next
you.
on the agenda for Mandy?
Right now I am really just booking speaking engagements for 2022 and looking at, you know, finishing up this leadership principles for her program that my business partner and I are creating. But I find it so interesting that you're asking me that question, Don, because the truth is, the day after TEDx happened, I woke up thinking, now what? And it was almost like this hope deferred feeling that I didn't expect to feel. Like, I was supposed to speak at TEDx in 2020, but then it got postponed and rescheduled for a year because of the pandemic. And so it's not normal, from what I understand, for TEDx speakers to get 2 years to work on their talk. Usually they get a couple months. And so it was just this goal that, like, I kind of became obsessed about. Like, I wanted to be the best I could be. And actually, my high school English teacher, my honors English teacher, she was somebody who was very hard to get an A+ in her class. And she's become one of my dear friends. She sent me a card the other day and she said she watched my TED Talk, and she said if I was in her speech class, she would have given me an A+ for that speech. And she goes, I never gave A+. And so I'm like, oh, awesome. All that hard work really paid off. But the thing is, now I kind of have just been giving myself a couple months to relax and to recharge and to rest and to really consider, what is it that I want to do next, because I'm somebody who needs to have a big goal in front of me to stretch myself and challenge myself. And I haven't exactly figured that out yet. I will tell you, I've had this goal for the last, oh gosh, probably since 2013. Do you ever go to the Global Leadership Summit? Have you
Never
heard of
have
that?
been. I
Okay.
heard of it, but never been.
So it's this summit that takes place at Willow Creek in, I believe it's in Chicago or outside of Chicago. I can't remember where they're actually at, but it's it's basically like a, why can't I think of the word right now? It's a broadcast. So they have all of these different locations that they set up, and everybody comes together for these 2 days for a global leadership summit. And they have people from all over the world setting up these virtual places, like live places, but then everything is through a simulcast. That's the word I'm looking for. And so it's this simulcast, and they have all of these leadership trainers and speakers and leaders from all kinds of different things, faith-based organizations. They've had Melinda Gates was a guest on there one year. She did like a little conversation. Sometimes they're having a conversation, a sit-down conversation. Sometimes they're actually up there teaching. And ever since I went to one, I have had this goal to speak at it. And I have no idea how to do that. I don't know if there's a place where you can send in an application. I think they actually handpick people from different things that they've seen. I know Brene Brown is somebody that I highly admire. And I know because of her TED Talk a decade ago, like she has had the doors of opportunity open because of that. And so I think if I had to tell you what my next big goal is, it's probably that, but I have no idea how to get there. I haven't even sat down to think about it. I think it started with TEDx because I really woke up one day a couple of years ago, like Elle Woods, thinking I should be a TED speaker, not knowing anything about it, not ever having gone to a TEDx event or anything. And I think this is why I've had this goal of speaking at the Global Leadership Summit for years. And I'm not sitting here thinking it's going to happen next year, because it might not. Like I might have a couple of years of hard work ahead of me to build those connections and to even build more experience. I'm not sure, but I think that's probably the next big goal. But for now, in the meantime, I want to do what's in front of me well. I want to build up the people that I am trusted to work with and really help them be at their best while I'm working on these other goals myself. That's a really long answer.
Well, I'll tell you what, shortly after this podcast goes live, you'll have a more clear path to that goal of yours. I'll speak it into existence for you.
Mm-hmm.
And since you're a lady of faith, I always invite folks to talk about their faith on this podcast since I'm a man of faith. So, what led you to becoming a woman of faith?
That's a really good question too. I grew up in a home where my parents taught me about God. They took me to church. They introduced me to Jesus when I was really young. I often tell people I've sat in all the different pews that you could sit in. My mom grew up Catholic. My dad grew up Lutheran. They were Baptist when I was little. And then the majority of my faith experience as like a young adult and into adulthood happened in the evangelical world, specifically Assemblies of God. And so I've gone to all those different settings. I kind of know the background and the theology of all the different ones. For me, my relationship with Jesus really became an integral part of my life about a decade ago when I actually stopped going to church. And my husband and I, we were so involved in church that church had become this thing where we went to perform. And so we took a step back and stopped going to church. And Sundays became a day where we spent time together. We would listen to sermons on podcasts. We would listen to things. We would read our Bible together. And I started really diving into the Bible on my own and just really going through it cover to cover and diving into, I think the book of Psalms is my favorite place to be, especially when I'm going through a season of hope deferred or maybe a little bit of depression or grief. Just because you see an example of what it's like for somebody to go through the same thing and to still have faith and to still have to encourage themselves and lean on God, but also question. And so for me, spending time with God is definitely, it's a very personal thing. And I think for a lot of people, it's a like faith is a really personal thing. I think because of the fact that I have taken the time to get to know God and study his word, it's actually opened the door for me to be able to work with people of all walks of faith. I mean, I've had the opportunity to work with women and men who are atheists, who are Buddhists, who don't believe what I believe, but yet are open to hearing my point of view and my leadership and my guidance, even because of the fact that I know how to honor them where they're at. I think we all have different gifts and talents, and the people who are called to evangelize and really, always talk about Jesus and bring people to Jesus, I think we need that. And I think that's awesome. My gifting is way more giving people permission to feel their feelings and let them know that God can handle it no matter what their feelings are. Like, he can handle the darkest parts of your life, and he's waiting there to be the friend that you need during that time. And so that's kind of where I come from that. However, obviously if I have a client who doesn't have the same faith as me and doesn't want, Bible homework or anything like that, we don't give it to them. But being able to love them for who they are and who God designed them to be, even if they don't see that in themselves, I think is a skill that has taken a decade to grow and a lot of time with God.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. Ain't nothing wrong with that. It says something pretty interesting. It's something that I fully resonate with, to be honest, is the fact that I believe it was 10 years ago when you and your husband were playing the roles of going to the quote unquote church.
Mhm.
When folks think of church, they always think of a building, but truth be told, a past guest on the show, Sister Jenna, mentioned how the world is basically going to be our temple, and last year proved that
Mhm.
because so many folks had to worship
Yes.
God in their different places, and it just brings back to the fact that, hey, we are the church. We, like different souls and beings scattered across the earth, like we make up the church, not brick buildings here. Like, we don't,
Mhm.
it's not always about the big giant screens and the big music production, the organs, or heck,
Mhm.
or even some places playing
Absolutely.
Taylor Swift before sermon. It's really
What
about
church is that? I want to go to that one. I'm a big Swiftie. I really am, Dom. I admire her songwriting and I admire her ability to switch focus. Like, I'm a huge Swiftie, so I would probably go to that service.
it threw me off my first time there.
I
They're
bet.
still around.
Yeah.
It's a church called the Mosaic. It's out in Maryland. I believe they
Okay.
have two campuses. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure they got virtual services. The Mosaic.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I wouldn't expect that at a church either, but it
No.
would probably make me be like, hey, these guys appreciate, you know, all walks of life. They appreciate art and music. And I mean, you got to understand, I grew up in that world where I grew up in purity culture. I grew up in the, we went through this strange season where we burned all of our CDs that weren't Christian CDs, like when I was a kid. And so being able to appreciate all kinds of art that's not only labeled Christian, I think that's important because I think God uses all of it. I see God in I see God in movies. I see God in music. Sometimes I see God in some of the darkest sounding music because God can handle our darkest parts. Like, for somebody to be that real and share the hardest things they're going through and be vulnerable enough to be like, here's my darkness. God can come into that and share light. And so I think, I don't know, I'm big into different kinds of art. I mean, I am a creative at my core. And so I appreciate all of that. And I'm really glad that I broke free from that idea that I only have to listen to Christian music or I only have to read Christian books. I only have to watch movies that are, Christian based. And I don't know, I see God in all of it. And so and even when you said, last year so many people had to figure out how do they spend time with God outside of a church building, that's what running is to me too. Being outdoors is my time to be with God. And I think I was reading this book by Beth Moore. was it Chasing Vineyards or something like that? I can't remember what it is, but it's something about vineyards, and it came out last year. And she talks about how the outdoors is really one of the best places to connect with God, because all of creation is like crying out to him and begging you to get quiet and hear him. And you see things differently than when you're only indoors in our modern world. And so I'm all for all that.
That's right. Whether it's on fours or yelling out four with a golf club, she's all for it. That's right.
Yeah.
That's how you connect four. That's right.
Mhm.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive, and that is if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're 25 again, but this time you're still in the current year with all of your knowledge and experience, what advice would you give to yourself?
Oh my word. Well, first of all, if I could be 25 in this year with all of the lessons I've already learned, the first thing I would say is good job, you didn't quit. Um, I think I would also say savor it more. Don't be so quick to go after the goal and hurry up and get there, but truly savor it and be brave enough to embrace alone time. When I was 25, I didn't embrace alone time. I didn't really think for myself. I didn't really know what my thoughts were. I was too focused on work, but it wasn't the work that was fulfilling to me. And I had settled a lot when I was 25. And so I think that's what I would say. Savor the journey and don't be so focused on the goals that you miss it.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. Yes, indeed. Probably one of the drawbacks of being an elite performer is the fact that you're so focused on what's next that sometimes you forget to pause and enjoy and savor the moment, save the
Mhm.
victory for a bit. Yes, indeed.
Absolutely.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, for those who need to savor this moment and all the other ones you're going to create and they're going to be missing you like candy on this podcast, need to hear more of you.
Did you just pull out a Mandy Moore reference?
I've been waiting to use that pun for this whole
It
episode. I was looking
worked.
for a time to use it.
I
Because
love it. That was great. That was great. That is like my jam. Yeah, she's another great, like she is a very talented woman. I really admire her music and her work as well. So got to give it to all the Mandys, right?
Yeah. Well, there's a here, Mandy. It's a good sign. It's a good sign. This has been a great episode. So, yeah, for those who miss you like candy, you need to jump into more of what you're doing. What's the best way for
Mhm.
folks to keep up with what you're doing?
So the best place to connect with me is at my website. It's mandybanderson.com. So that's MANDY, B as in boy, ANDERSON.com. And that will actually bring you to everything that you need. It'll bring you to the Raymond team page as well. It'll bring you to my TED Talk where you can get the book, which is available on Amazon. It'll bring you to everything, my social media. My favorite place to hang out on social media is Instagram. So you can look me up there at MS Mandy B Anderson. For motivational speaker is really what it's for. But yeah, that's where you can connect with me.
Oh, yeah. That's right, folks. So you heard it right here, folks. That's right. Slide into her DMs. Be like, hey, I need somebody speaking my freaking event to my freaking staff. Like, need to buy thousands of copies of your books and have you sign all of them. Like, reach out to the marvelous and motivational Mandy, y'all. Miss Triple M MBA herself and all the stuff that she's doing.
Mhm.
And she is on a roll like a hot dog, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Indeed.
Yep, messy bun and all.
That's right. Messy buns, honey buns. That's right. All the
Mhm.
fun's on a bun
Bringing it
indeed.
back around.
Well, we never got to have you back on the show in the future. So, any parting words before we close up shop, Mandy?
Well, Dom, I really just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my story and my book with your audience. I think that what you do is awesome. Somebody had told me a while ago how important podcasts are because they're bringing hope to people. And I think you bring hope, you bring laughter, you bring just this sunshine to your listeners. And so thank you so much for inviting me to be here. And I would love to come back someday. So I think this was a fun conversation.
How's it going, my friend? I'm so glad you made it to the end. That shows that you are an uncommon finisher, and I am so grateful for you sharing your ears, your attention, and your time to this wonderful podcast. To do something that'll take yourself to the next level, and for everybody else involved in this wonderful program, share it with at least 3 people in your network so that way more folks can be inspired to be their best.